Favorable and unfavorable conditions for learning. The environment where learning takes place has a significant effect on students' attitude. Attitude is closely related to a student's behavior, so creating favorable conditions for learning is important. It starts with the classroom environment. A good classroom should be as comfortable as possible. Students are going to spend a lot of time in the classroom. A qualified instructor needs to make sure the U.S. Coast Guard approved classroom in which they teach can provide the following: comfortable chairs, proper table space, proper temperature, good air quality, drinking water, restrooms, it's free of excessive activity, it's free of distracting dialogue, and it has reliable internet access. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the classroom learning environment. My experience in the past, I used to teach an 80-hour master captain's license course, and it was determined like butts and seats. You need to be in that classroom for 80 hours to meet Coast Guard requirements. It's since changed a bit, but it taught me a lot. At the end of the course, we'd hand out an evaluation. In this evaluation, one of the questions was, how comfortable was the classroom? It was like a 1 to 5. Maybe everything else would get a 5, maybe one other 4. The comfort of the classroom was almost always like 3 or even 2. And it was because you set a student at a big plastic table with a fold-out chair for 80 hours, and it's bound to be uncomfortable. I mean, the question might have been phrased that, how comfortable are you when you take an 80-hour course in a classroom? And the answer is not that comfortable. Especially during chart navigation, people are constantly, they're bent over their charts like this, and you see them, they're stretching. Oh, it's my back. How can we do this? And it lasts like 3 days. They're kind of uncomfortable. So make sure that you just heard my AC kick on probably, right? The air temperature is good. The air quality is good. There's drinking water. There's bathrooms close by. There's a place where they can just leave the classroom for a moment and go stretch or take an important phone call, for example, and come back to class. The environment and other things. Make sure there's not a whole bunch of distracting conversation happening right there, like a room next to you is having some like pep rally or something, That's not good. So free of distraction. You don't want a bunch of people talking. You don't want a bunch of loud noises. You want it nice, calm, quiet. You want the Wi-Fi to be really good. So the environment in which the learning takes place is important. The front and back of the classroom. When students are finding their seats for the very first time on the first day of class, the instructor should encourage them to move forward in the classroom. In the front of the classroom, students can hear, see, and be heard. To be clear, students should be given their space, but should be discouraged from sitting multiple rows behind the rest of the class by themselves. It's more challenging to learn from the back of a classroom. If a situation arises where there's a student all the way in the back of the classroom by themselves and they insist on being there, they should be called on as frequently as students in the front of the classroom and gently encouraged to move forward as the class progresses. The front and back of the classroom thing. Some students choose to be in the back of the classroom. Some students choose to be in the front of the classroom. You got to keep an eye on the students in the back of the classroom. I had one guy, he just stayed all the way in the very back corner, and all day he just traded stocks. He was like obsessed, right? He just traded stocks in the back of the classroom. The only reason he could get away with it is because he's back there. Gently encourage those guys to move forward. Hey, call on them. Hey, what you doing back there? How about this? What do you think about this topic? During the class, maybe you can get them to move forward a little bit, right? So just be aware people in the back of the classroom might not be paying attention, but pretending they are. Sometimes you call them, they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, I got it. Keep going, I got it. Keep going, we're good to go, just keep going. A lot of times those guys are not the ones ready for the exam. They're not good to go. You give them the final, they weren't ready. Remembering the student's name. Large classes make it harder to remember all of the students' names, but it can be done. Take notes about each student and share your phone number and contact info with them. Students tend to sit in the same spot in the classroom each day. Make a diagram of their seating arrangement and record their names and why they're taking the course. A QI should be invested in each student's success. The students' names. This is important. People, if you are seriously invested in a student's success and their education, you're going to remember their name. And there's some tricks to this. So the first day of class, I learned this trick from my dad. He's taught these classes a lot, and I'd go into his class and say hi to everybody. And he's got a chart. He takes a piece of paper and he creates a chart. So here he is, right? Here's the instructor, and then you have a series of tables. Here's all the students, right? And generally a table can fit two, but let's say you're not full up, right? So you might have like positions, like say this one's Steve. This guy over here is John, right? This guy over here, this is Sue. This guy over here is Peter. And you have one guy back here, his name is Stan. Okay, look at that. These students tend to sit in the same spot every day. It's weird, but that's how it happens. So from the very first moment, students are starting to take seats. Encourage them to come forward as far as possible. Stay close to you. Some even double up on seats. In ChartNav, you can spread out a little bit more. It's nice to have at least a 6 foot by 2.5 foot table for ChartNav. If not like an 8 foot by 3 foot, like a big table for ChartNav. Make this seating arrangement. And then when they come in, you can record, this guy's he's all about fishing. This John, he's all about sailing, right? And now you're setting yourself up to give these guys analogies and help them learn. Sue, she does dolphin tours, right? So you can look at your chart and say, cool, I need an example about like 35 people shifting all their weight over to one side of a boat on a dolphin tour. I bet Sue knows all about that. Call her, hey Sue, tell me about a time when like 3 dolphins came and the whole boat shifted over to one side. What happened? What happened with the stability? What happened with crowd control, right? This is a real thing. People shifting have caused marine casualties. In New York, this happened and it was horrible, right? So take notes about them, where they're coming from, what they're doing. Look at the person and say their name multiple times. You can look at this Stan, you might look kind of weird. They might catch you, but you look at them, Stan, 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 Stan. Remember their names. So using this method, you can remember a lot of students' names and physically repeat their name while you look at them. Drive it into your head. And again, take notes. Communicate with the students. Good communication between instructors and students helps avoid behavioral problems in the classroom. Instructors should address behavioral issues in the classroom as soon as they arrive. One effective method of solving behavioral issues in the classroom is to ask your class about the issue in order to create a plan together to deal with the issue. Most behavioral problems are avoided when the qualified instructor aligns their actions and intentions while having clear goals and objectives from the beginning of the training session. A QI wanting to be liked and respected may cause tension in the classroom. To eliminate this tension and gain the respect of the class while still being liked, it's important for the QI's intentions and actions to align. QIs must have clear goals and objectives from the first moment they meet the students until the end of the training session. It's the QI's responsibility to show leadership, manage the classroom, and instruct. QIs must always be knowledgeable, organized, calm, and patient. Although sometimes a QI feels it's their responsibility to make a student learn, in reality, it's the student's responsibility to learn. You have to communicate with these students. Communication is the key to nipping behavioral problems in the bud, if you will. Without good communication, resentment can start to set in. Let's say a student starts to resent another student, or starts to resent the instructor for something they did. No one even knows. So communicate with these students. Hey, what's up? How's your day? What's going on? I've noticed that you might be struggling here, or I've noticed that yesterday you were distracted. What's going on? You might have to pull these students aside, but sometimes you're like a shrink during these courses. There's all these people from all these different walks of life. They all got their own baggage. They're all stressed out because they're being educated. Learning is not always comfortable. Just make sure to communicate with them. Get their phone number. Say, hey, call me. If you need anything, call me. I'm not doing anything. I'm teaching this course. Get a hold of me. Don't hesitate to reach out. Don't wait until you're super ultra frustrated to reach out. Just give me a call if you got a problem. I might be able to talk you through it. I might be able to talk you off the cliff. You know what I mean? I spend a lot of time on the phone during the day to say, it's cool, man. Just calm down. Let's take a look at this. Okay, you've done this, this, and this. All right, that's cool. Let's try this. What about this? Have you seen these statements to recognize? Have you seen this resource? What about this? Oh, I see. There's a nuance here. All these little things. Just this communication with your students goes a long way. And it shows you're invested in the student. Remembering their name, showing good communication. You're invested in these guys. You care. Unfavorable conditions. Certain situations in the classroom will make learning difficult for students. The following factors are situations that cause stress, frustration, and unproductive anxiety. Tight decision making. Tight decision making occurs continually during the navigation problem chart plot exam module. Some of the problem sets have answers that are close together. In particular, the 3-point fixed problem set has this issue. When students do a question properly and understand the concept, but their answer lies exactly between two possible answers, it's very frustrating. Qualified instructors should be on the lookout for frustration and elevated anxiety due to tight decision making during the navigation problems chart plot exam module. Social stress. Social stress is stress that stems from one's relationships with others and from the social environment in general. Let's look at a couple examples of social stress that may occur in the classroom. In one particular instance, I had a student reveal to me that his wife would leave him if he did not pass the course. His anxiety was noticeably higher than those around him. This is an example of extreme social stress. A much more common social stress would be feeling judged by friends, family, and colleagues that know you're attending a course and expect you to pass. The previous two examples occurred outside the classroom. Social stress occurs within the classroom as well. Some students work through learning material much faster than others. The students that fall behind might still be on track to finish the course on time, but feel the pressure of being slower than students ahead of them. The last example of social stress we should look at is the social stress on the qualified instructor. The qualified instructor must stand in front of the class and lead, which creates social stress. Conventionally, people think of this as stage fright. This stress will quickly subside if the instructor aligns their intentions and actions through clear goals and objectives. Unfavorable conditions for learning. Tight decision making. And tight decision making is a big one for ChartNav. You have these guys, they're getting answers and they're going down and they're looking and all the answers are really tight, especially in 3-point fix, super tight. They might even get answers that are between two answers, right? One might be right, one might be wrong, but the answer they got is right between them. This causes stress. You got to watch for that, especially during chart and a half. A little bit during rules. Another thing about tight decision making is this: watch for students that are constantly trying to prove questions wrong. This is a bad idea. There's some off-color jokes about this that I don't tell anymore. But if a student is constantly trying to prove a question wrong, especially in rules of the road, they will get nowhere. So try to coax them into proving answers to be correct. Reassure them we've been through these questions a lot of times, and some of them are a bit confusing, but they've proven to be correct. Even if that student thinks they're not correct, they're not getting anywhere, because this is a Coast Guard question. It's approved by the Coast Guard. The correct answer will remain the correct answer. So that student trying to prove that they're right and the question is wrong, that guy's going nowhere. That's a habit that needs to be broken very early in the course. And mostly it happens with rules of the road. Social stresses are big in class. You see people that are just high anxiety, they have social anxiety in general. So you put them in a classroom and they just like freeze. And at the beginning of class, this is a good time to just let everybody, you make your seating chart, you kind of learn about the students. Sometimes it can take like an hour and a half, 2 hours, just to say, hey, who are you? Why are you here? What's going on? Why you need a captain's license? How'd you get your time on the water? These will kind of bring down the social stress levels. The qualified instructor also has a lot of social stress on them. They get up in front of a class, there's like 5, 9 people they don't know, and they're standing up there feeling judged. But what you do, you have your intentions and your actions and you align them. And then you set up clear goals and objectives. All right, now that we're all got to know each other a little bit, here's what's going on. Day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5 of the course. Here's where we need to be at the end of each day. And this is how we're gonna do it. And this is what you need to study. So having clear goals and objectives and your intentions and your actions all aligned, you can get up in front of that class and you can lead the class, you can instruct, and you can feel less social stress and anxiety because you have a clear path forward and you're going to lead these guys to the end. Conflict with others. When classmates don't get along with each other, it creates unfavorable conditions for learning. In the worst case scenario, the students don't get along with the qualified instructor. As a qualified instructor, one should stay humble and listen to students' feedback closely. Okay, conflict with others, conflict with the instructor, conflict between students. It happens. People just, all of a sudden, they're like getting on each other's nerves. I had this class. There was a guy who was like brilliant, but just like didn't care, super laid back. Then there's another guy who was medium. He was like pretty good, but he thought he was like God's gift to the earth. And he was so cool, right? And then I had another guy who was like super gritty, worked so hard, but he's like riding Harleys and he wasn't very good with the material, but he'd work and work and work and work. So these 3 guys set up the craziest dynamic in a class I've ever seen. The guy who didn't even care, but was extremely good, and he liked the guy who was like not at all good with the material, but super gritty. But the smart guy didn't really care for the guy who thought that he was so cool and he was just medium good. So you get these class dynamics and people start to rub each other the wrong way. So you have to be aware of this situation and kind of try to like lubricate the situation, try to get them to tell funny stories and make 2 people that aren't getting along, try to make them laugh with each other a little bit. It can really help. A big problem if the students don't like the qualified instructor, your class is not going to go well. So a really good way to be liked by students, again, is goals and objectives and intentions and actions aligned. The other thing, the qualified instructor should try to remain very humble and listen closely to feedback by the students. Really listen to the students. Think about it hard and stay humble. A good way to make students not like you is just to get up there and talk about yourself and how cool you are. Oh, I'm so cool. Check this out. Check out what I've done. I am so cool. Everything I say is right. Everything you say is wrong because I'm so cool. That's a good way to have a class just fall apart on you. You do not want that. So stay humble. Listen very closely to students and take it to heart and think about it. Fatigue. As it relates to students, fatigue is extreme tiredness resulting from mental exertion. Try not to run students into the ground when they're tired. One way to help students wake up is to have them take a 5-minute break to walk around the property of the approved location. Short breaks, once an hour or every 90 minutes, can greatly improve a student's ability to stay focused for long periods of time. Fatigue. Fatigue is a real thing. You set students in a class for 8 hours with an hour lunch and 2 15-minute breaks. Fatigue is huge. It's in the morning, they're good. After their 15-minute break, they come back, they're good. Watch for people eating big lunches. This is a big one. You're going to be so fatigued if you go out to a restaurant at lunch and just like shove a burger and fries and a shake and a pop or whatever. You come back and you're going to try to lecture. First of all, QI is going to be tired because of lunch. The students, I watch them literally fall asleep and like jerk back awake during lectures after lunch. At this time, you need to like, all right, everybody stand up. We're going outside. We're going to go get some fresh air. We got to move around a little bit. Let me tell you something. Let's go look at some boats. Let's go point some things out. You know, after lunch is a good time to move. At the end of the day, you notice students, they're fatiguing. They'll only get, like their concentration will happen in shorter and shorter bursts. So notice that. Don't drive students into the ground when they're fatigued. They'll get bad attitudes and they won't want to do anything. So if you notice fatigue happening, encourage people to stand up, move around, stretch, go get a drink, go take a jog around the hallway if they're into that kind of thing. Just try to get them to move around and take these like 5-10 minute breaks and then get back in focus for like an hour or 90 minutes. Then get them up, get them moving around, get their blood flowing, get them breathing, you know what I mean? They learn much better. I've seen some studies lately where focus really happens, like deep focus happens between these like 60 and 90 minute intervals. After 90 minutes, concentration is much harder. You got to get up, take a little micro break, and then you can come back, get back to it. Oh yeah.